Hey, and welcome into the Big Ten Huddle. I'm your host, JR. We got a lot to talk about going on in the Big Ten. We have an episode, a lot of transfer portal to be talked about. We have TJ from the Hoosier Huddle. It's more of a football podcast and a football group normally, but TJ knows his basketball, so he's going to join us and talk a little bit about IU and the rest of the conference. And then we want to welcome Zad from Bruin Source, our very first representative from one of the new Big Ten schools coming in. I know that the date is like in the summer when you guys officially move over or something like that. But Zad, welcome. Thank you for being the very first guest of the new Big Ten teams coming in. How does it feel knowing you're coming into the Big Ten?
Well, first of all, thanks for the warm welcome. Super stoked to be here. It feels strange. I guess it still hasn't really hit that the Pac-12 is dead for all intents and purposes at this point. But I'm looking forward to the new matchups in basketball and football, and getting to know some of the Big Ten schools a little bit better. So super excited for that transition. I think it's going to be fun for basketball, maybe a little less fun for football.
That's all right. Hey, we're gonna love the basketball. We got a lot to talk about there, and then who knows? Deshaun Foster might surprise us. We all know the story. Well, at least Big Ten fans know the story of Northwestern last year and how that turned out. So you never know. We have casual Big Ten Kent. If you notice, he's not here. He says he's coming. Don't worry, boys. So when Kent gets here, don't worry. We'll let him right in. TJ, how are you doing tonight, man?
Yeah, doing great. Excited to talk some basketball. Obviously, a lot of transfer portal news um, for UCLA and for Indiana as well. Um, and then I know we're going to touch on weird stuff going on at Iowa. So lots of Big Ten stuff to talk about.
Oh yeah, and I'm sure this will probably be Zad's first time ever talking about Iowa
Yeah, yeah.
basketball, or maybe even Iowa in general. So it's all new territory for the UCLA
I'm
Bruins.
sadly a little bit more familiar with Iowa head coaches with Steve Alford being here a few
Oh,
years
that's right.
ago than I would like to be. So not my first rodeo, but yeah.
There we go. There we go. We also have the OHIO podcast. This is Eric says, "Welcome in, everyone. Looking forward to the show." Yes, Eric, thank you for being here. Eric has said that this is his favorite college basketball show that he listens to. I don't know if Eric listens to many college basketball shows, but we'll take it that it's his favorite one. So thank you for being here, Eric. We're going to have a great time tonight. All right, while we wait for Kent to be here, let's just go ahead and get into the first topic here. TJ, man, Indiana signs Oumar Ballo. Just a fantastic signing. The number one player in the 24/7 transfer portal class. He is also the number two player in the On3 transfer portal class. I don't think On3 or I don't think Rivals or ESPN does transfer portal classes. I think those are the only two. At least those are the only two I checked. But I mean, this is a huge addition. I know he's the top center in both of those rankings. So, I mean, TJ, you tell me, man, how big of a commitment or signing is this for IU going into next year after losing Kalel Ware? I
hmm
know that, the guards are a different story, but obviously somebody had to come in and replace Kalel Ware. How big of a commitment is this for the IU Hoosiers?
Yeah, we'll talk about fit in a little bit, but just Mike Woodson is determined to play two big guys. Um, his system runs through the post. Whether IU fans like it or not, that's what's going to happen. So it was a goal of Indiana to go get the best big guy that they could. Pharrell Payne from Minnesota visited. Amari Williams from Drexel was scheduled to come in on a visit. Instead, Oumar Ballo comes in. Indiana locks him down. Um, Strong showing from the NIL. Reportedly $1.2 million for Oumar Ballo. So they're not messing around. Um, you can argue whether or not he's worth that, but he was to Indiana, and you're worth what you get paid. So um, elite offensive rebounder, and that's something that Indiana has struggled with. They've been below 200 in the country. Um, each of Mike Woodson's years, offensive rebounding, even with Trace Jackson Davis, and then last year with Khalil Ware, not a strength for the Indiana Hoosiers. They miss a lot of shots. So it's important for Indiana to ratchet up that offensive rebounding. He's good on the defensive end as well. All Pac-12 defensive team. Physical presence in the post clearly is what you're getting from him. You mentioned the guard play, a different story. Yes, I think that another commitment Indiana got is going to be just as important, if not more so. And that's Miles Rice from Washington
Mm-hmm.
State. Um, Incredible story for him. Survives cancer, doesn't play for 2 seasons, and then comes in as a freshman by eligibility standards. Certainly a mature freshman with going through what he did off the court. Comes in, makes the All Pac-12 team, wins Freshman of the Year award. I think that he will complement Oumar Ballo exceptionally well. Rice is really good in the pick and roll. Oumar Ballo is elite at setting those picks, diving to the rim, and being available for lobs. That's something that IU used a lot with Trace Jackson Davis and Jalen Hood Schifino 2 years ago. I think you're going to see that same thing come to Indiana. What they need now is going to be perimeter shooting. That's been the issue for Mike Woodson's teams. You've got the post guys, you've got your point guard. You need to get some perimeter shooting. That's going to be their next focus.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have Trey Galloway really step up and be that guy as the off-ball guard for this team. I presume he'll be starting as well with Rice this year, but what are your thoughts
Yeah,
on that?
Caden Carlisle from Stanford is visiting Indiana this weekend. I'd be really surprised if he is not an Indiana Hoosier by the end of the weekend.
Wow.
I would be really surprised. Now, I don't know who's going to start between those guys, but I don't think that Cannon Carlisle comes to Indiana with the expectation to be a backup. Um, we'll see on that. Trey Galloway, um, he wants to do whatever he needs to do to help Indiana win. I think his best role would be coming off the bench as a sixth man. To be a combo guard that comes in, can play spot minutes at point guard, can play minutes at the 2. And I mean, heaven forbid IU runs out of 3 guard lineup under Mike Woodson, but that could be something they do as well. Trey Galloway's big enough that he could do that. Miles Rice is 6'3". Cannon Carlisle's like 6'3" or so.
Right.
So that could be something that they do, but yeah, they do need. They've got a few scholarships remaining, and I would expect that would be put towards perimeter shooting. Connor Esigian, Big Ten fans know him from Wisconsin. He's visiting Indiana right now. And he's from Indiana originally, from Central Noble High School. So that would be a good fit. Somebody that could just come in off the bench and hit some threes, help the floor spacing, which is a real issue for Indiana, especially when you add another post presence like Ballo that is not going to space the floor at all.
Right. Yeah. I mean, this is huge, and Philip said exactly what I was thinking. Woodson, he's recruiting the Pac-12. He's seeing that these teams are moving out, and even though some of these teams are going to the Big 12, I mean, you can make an argument that the Big Ten is building, the better conference out of, some of the players that have come out of some of the schools that are going to the Big 12. I guess not so much in Stanford. They're going to the ACC, but the Big Ten is definitely going to make that case for next year. Zad, we're going to get your thoughts in just a minute, but I want to welcome in Kent. Kent, welcome in. I know you were going to be late. I know you were probably rushing. I'm surprised you're not sweating, but we're glad to have you here. How you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing great. JR, you know better than anyone. I hate being late, so I apologize to the rest of you guys as well for being late, but I'm here now. I'm ready to talk ball. I'm ready to talk Ballo. That's what I'm ready to talk right now. Yeah, that's what I'm ready to talk. Did you guys already go over him already?
We just got TJ's thoughts.
Okay.
You want to give your thoughts really fast?
Sure, I'll jump right in and talk about him. Didn't obviously watch a ton of him all year, besides the Purdue game, and then I went back and watched his March Madness game. So the last 3 games that they played this March. And really impressed with him. I didn't know how good he really was until I went back and watched his clips. And mainly what I was most impressed with is some obvious things right off the bat was the pick and roll. He's really good in those situations. And then his best attribute I found was how good he is at getting his position. He's strong and he's really smart with his strength, and he can just get where he wants to be. And if they can get him the ball next year at Indiana, I think that he's going to really thrive. But then the last thing that I wanted to mention about him, underrated thing that I noticed, is that he's sneaky athletic. And I don't mean like just like above the rim. Like in transition, he was beating like Clemson's bigs, which if you remember Clemson, they didn't have big bigs. They had like undersized bigs. You would think they'd be a little bit more athletic, be able to get back on defense. He was beating them down the floor. He was beating Dayton's bigs back down the floor and getting transition buckets. So really great pickup for Indiana. I'm excited to see him next year.
For sure.
Yeah,
sure.
Ballo's an old foe for UCLA fans, obviously. I mean, played at Arizona for several years. They're our biggest rival in basketball, arguably bigger than USC. I think he's a great player, a low down low. His biggest issue, I think, and it'll be interesting to see him transition to the Big Ten with this, is conditioning and just taking plays off. I think he often had those issues at Arizona where, you know, he'll run up and down the court for 3 or 4 plays and then just like give up for a couple. And so whether that's a conditioning issue or an effort issue, we'll see. But I'm curious to see how that translates, if he can, you know, respond to Mike Woodson's coaching a little bit in a different way. Obviously, the free throw shooting is another issue for him. If he can improve that, I think you get a really, really complete player out of Ballo. But yeah, not looking forward to having to play him again. I was hoping never to see him, but here we are. And yeah, like someone said, I think Indiana's rating the Pac-12 and getting a lot of young talent. Miles Rice obviously is a very good player. And Kanan Carlisle as well, expected to be Hoosier, like TJ said. So yeah, it's kind of a familiar, some familiar faces coming over is kind of nice, but also like I was hoping not to see them again.
Well, Zad, every Big Ten fan was ecstatic after the NCAA tournament because none of us wanted to ever see Zach Edey again. So
That's right.
You know, we feel we feel that. I think that, you know, I am impressed, man, that you're not so casual anymore. You're out here watching film and seeing other players. I watched the Arizona game versus Purdue, and honestly, you watched that game. Ballo doesn't look very impressive because Edey was able. I mean, he still it was a good game. It just wasn't, you know, up to his normal standard because Zach Edey was giving him so much pressure. But I mean, you coming in here telling us you watched these other games and watching the film, man, are we going to change your name from casual Big Ten to something else here soon?
No, don't do that. It's still going to be casual takes all the time. It's funny. One of my friends actually made a burner account. I'm putting him on blast right now, but he made a burner account called Serious Big Ten, and literally all he does with the account is like reply to all my tweets and tell me that I'm not serious enough. That's all he does. He made the account just to do that. But no, I'm not changing to Serious Big Ten. I have a resource that I'm able to watch like guys pretty quickly, just their clips. So when there's somebody coming into the conference like that, it's pretty quick for me to be able to pull up like a couple of their games and just watch like all their makes, all their misses, or like their defensive stuff if I want to look at that. And when I have an opportunity to do that, if I have some time to do that, a guy like him, you know, that Indiana fans are super excited about, I wanted to know a little bit more about him because, like I said, didn't watch him. All I watched is Big Ten all year. So the one game I watched, like you said, was the Purdue game, and I wanted to be able to know a little bit more about this guy, and I'm excited about him. I'm really excited.
Yeah, I'm not excited to face him, but I'm excited for IU and my in-laws who are, I'm sure, going to be ecstatic. They're season ticket holders for IU. So, and TJ, I'm sure you'll be there to watch plenty. Let's end this conversation. TJ, you've already talked a little bit about the pick and roll and the possibility of getting the Stanford transfer in to help with shooting and stuff like that. But, I mean, tell me, with the other players that Mike Woodson is bringing in, obviously Malik Renew has a starting spot on this team. I anticipate there might be some switching out of both of them kind of playing the 5 a little bit, especially if Ballo, is taking some plays off, like Zod said, and going from there. But, I mean, do you expect this team to look a whole lot different with how they play on the court or just with the players that are actually there? What are your thoughts in that way, TJ?
Yeah, the biggest ongoing issue for Indiana fans is the stubbornness of Mike Woodson. inability or unwillingness to make adjustments. Uh, I think that Miles Rice is such an upgrade at point guard on what Indiana had last year. Xavier Johnson, even when healthy, was erratic, and he wasn't often healthy. So they were left playing Trey Galloway out of position, putting way too much of a load on him, or a freshman Gabe Cupps that was not ready to contribute in the Big Ten. So I think that the upgrade at point guard from what IU had last year to Miles Rice makes a gigantic difference in what IU's able to do. I think you'll see an offense closer to what IU ran with Jalen Hood-Schifino and Trace Jackson Davis 2 seasons ago than what you had last year. I think that the biggest issue that Indiana has to, two of them, Indiana has to solve is Oumar Ballo played, and Zed mentioned this, they played, I think Ballo was 24 minutes a game, if I'm not mistaken. While he played those 24 minutes, his box score plus minus it would have been second in the Big Ten after Zach Edey this past season.
Wow.
So you are probably going to be a really good team when he's on the court, paired with Miles Rice, Mackenzie Mbako, Malik Renew, and whoever's playing the two, whether that's Cannon Carlisle or Trey Galloway. When Ballo is off the court, number one, can Malik Renew stay out of foul trouble? The answer so far in his career has been no. He definitely cannot. So are you able to move him to the 5? Can he do that without getting in foul trouble? And that slides Mbako to the 4, which is fine. He can be an adequate stretch 4 if you surround him with 3 other guards. So I think Indiana in the transfer portal is still looking at who can they get to be an adequate backup to give you 10 to 15 minutes a game, because it's unlikely that Ballo is going to be able to extend his minutes per game to 30. That's probably going to reduce his effectiveness, and you'll see more of those plays off, right? So I think that IU rounding out this roster with another effective big guy, maybe even one that stretches the floor a little bit and gives you a change of pace when you bring him in, that would be the ideal for Indiana. That plus another perimeter shooter that could give you more versatility instead of just we're going to dribble the ball down the court with Miles Rice or Caden Carlisle. We're going to throw it into the post to Renew or Ballo, and everybody's going to stand around and watch while those two go to work. That could be what we see, but it would be painful and result in probably another middling season. I do think that IU's floor has raised from what it was this past season just by the addition of a really competent point guard, which IU did not have a season ago. Like, it raises your floor. Whether or not that ceiling can reach, top 2 or 3 in the Big Ten, I think is up to whether or not the perimeter shooting around those big guys can be good enough.
Yeah, TJ, I got 2 questions off of that, just really, really quick, because we are running a little bit out of time on this one here. So first one, Gabe Cupps next year, you see him making it on the floor, or do you think this is going to be kind of a developmental year for him?
I think that Indiana coaches would be pleased. I don't know how pleased Gabe Cupps would be, but would be pleased if Gabe Cupps was very limited in his role next season and spent time developing. I think that they will want the 4 to 5 guards that are on the court to be some combination of Carlisle, Rice, Galloway, and another transfer addition like a Connor Esigian, perhaps. Those would be the 4 guys that they would get, and then spot duty minutes in a limited role to Cupps.
Okay, my other question, this one was kind of, I don't know how true it was, but I heard about it. The Venmo payments Oumar Ballo got, did he really get a bunch of Venmo payments from students when he came on his visit?
I don't know if it's true. It would absolutely not surprise me.
That is hilarious.
the NIL payment he got, I guess, wasn't enough. You got to throw in the $10 and $25 extra payments for him to buy drinks at one of the Bloomington bars, I guess, too. I don't, the Indiana fan base is nothing if not engaged, I guess.
Yes.
Not something I understand. I can't fathom sending a Venmo payment to somebody that I've literally never met and never will. But that
But hey, if he dribbles the
different
ball
strokes
for
for
your
different
team,
folks, I guess.
if he
Yeah,
dribbles the ball for your team, it might mean something.
I suppose so. Yeah, and in
Our
this
friend
case, if
Burke,
he dunks it,
our friend Burke from Often Daunted says if you get Farrell Payne, that would just be chef's kiss to come in there. And we all know how much Kent is a Farrell Payne fan.
Oh yeah, man. If you guys got him, I'm all
Yeah.
in on the Hoosiers next year.
Yeah.
100%.
I don't. I absolutely agree. For Farrell Payne, I don't know why on earth that would make sense, but I
It
guess
happened.
the NIL check is big enough. You're willing to put up with the reduced role, and that would be a fantastic finishing to that. But again, even that leaves you with no floor spacing.
Yeah.
So I think a stretch big guy that can give you 10 to 15 minutes and knock down an occasional three might be a better fit with that. I know Ben Hummerkaus, who is a guy from Evansville, 6'9" guy that is looking at NBA options, which he doesn't have a chance of doing that, but he wants to work out for NBA teams, but if he comes back to college, that might be an option. He's a guy that can shoot. I think that's what you're looking at more than Payne.
For sure. I like that, Philip. No pain, no gain. And then Burke asking, what's his Venmo? Love that.
I'll give you mine.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I'll pass it on.
We'll have a
Hey,
track
JR,
record
real
of
quick.
all
Speaking of
this.
Minnesota guys, I was really disappointed to see on the rundown you didn't have a section about Parker Fox coming back next year. What's up with that, dude?
Well, we talk about him almost every episode. I don't know if he needs a
Okay.
section anymore. He comes up every episode at least once, so
Okay, I just wanted to squeeze that in real quick while we were on the Minnesota topic.
that's totally fine. They got a commitment. Who'd they get? I was prepping stuff and
I just retweeted it. I forgot his name. I don't know.
Yeah,
Mitchell. Oh, his name's Mitchell. Because I thought it was funny because they're gonna have two Mitchells next year now.
Oh, there we go. I
Yeah.
like that. Two Mitches.
They'll
All
have
right.
Mike and whoever this other guy is. But anyways, off Minnesota. Sorry.
All right, yeah, let's get to Zod's team here. UCLA, man, I tell you, they are killing it in the transfer portal. They've lost a few players. I know I've heard some people say they weren't the most impactful players in the world, especially with the three guys they have coming in right now. Eric Daly, Sky Clark, former Illinois player, or Illinois fans would know him. And then Kobe Johnson coming over from USC. Kobe Johnson, obviously a huge addition for Mick Cronin and the UCLA Bruins here. This is the number one transfer portal class in the 24/7 rankings. Unfortunately, I forgot to check the On3 rankings, but I would assume it's pretty high up there, if not number one over there as well. So, I mean, Zod, just talk to us, man, about this class. What are you excited about? What's the feeling here?
I think the prevailing feeling right now around UCLA fans is everyone's pretty hyped about this. Coming off of last season, obviously was not great. We had a losing season in forever. It's been a minute, and UCLA, for as up and down as it's been in the last 20 years, hasn't had many true losing seasons, and that was one of them. So, Mick Cronin going out into the transfer portal and trying to rectify some of those issues has been a breath of fresh air. Now, the thing that's really enabled this is NIL. I think we've, hinted at it, Oumar Ballo getting $1.2 million, people enrolling players, it's the Wild West. And UCLA generally has been a very conservative institution in terms of playing with NIL, and it sounds like they've kind of taken the kid gloves off a little bit here. By some accounts, UCLA is kind of in the top 5 of NIL fundraising for basketball, so that's been good news for us, and it's showing up here, right? With these 3 guys that we've got committed. Just looking at these guys like Eric Daly, power forward out of Oklahoma State, was a freshman. Ideally, we can get 3 years out of him still. Obviously, with the transfer portal, you never know, but 3 years of eligibility. And when you look at this guy, he is a prototypical Mick Cronin type of player. High motor, super tough, plays a lot of defense, has a level of athleticism that allows him to switch on defense, which is super important for Cronin's system. And he has a little bit more polish to his offense than I actually thought he did. He can shoot the three a little bit. He has a little bit, some post moves. I'm super stoked for this kid to come to UCLA because we had very, very little production out of the 4 spot last year. So he's going to be a major, major upgrade there. Kobe Johnson, you mentioned coming from USC. Obviously, it's always great to steal your rival's player, especially a guy as good as Kobe Johnson. We're very familiar with him. He has torched UCLA in the past. But I'm excited to see him in blue and gold now. Again, he helps with that athleticism, especially from the wing spot. He can play defense. He's a decent 3-point shooter. I think he's career 33% shooter. A couple of years ago, he shot 36%. And you can imagine he can shoot a little better than that on a team that values creating good shots. I see him as kind of coming in and stepping into that Jalen Clark kind of role. So if you're not familiar with Jalen Clark, 2 years ago, Defensive Player of the Year for the Pac-12, and also had some national awards there as well. We need a guy like that to have a wing defender. We just haven't had a guy that's been effective last season. So he kind of comes and fills that role. And then the last guy that we have is Sky Clark, as you mentioned, by way of Illinois and then Louisville. Before that, he was actually committed to Kentucky for a little bit before he got injured. So he's been around the block. And people have knocked him for that a little bit, but from what I can tell, he really hasn't had any character issues. That's like his one knock for whatever reason. But again, he's a guy that actually gives us some ball handling. Dylan Andrews, our point guard, fantastic player, great defender, a little bit of a streaky shooter, but can carry the load there. But last season, we really did not have a guy who could handle the ball besides him, at least effectively. We tried it with some guys, just they were turnover machines. So getting a guy like Sky Clark who can alleviate some of those minutes for Dylan Andrews, take some of those ball handling duties over, is nothing but a good thing. He's a decent passer and a decent shooter too, right? And what I think he brings to the table is some shot making ability. We didn't have a guy like that. So that I'm super excited for him. It's also a homecoming for him. So he's originally from LA. Yep. So that hopefully gives him a little bit of extra juice to step in and buy into the Cronin system and play hard. So, and the most exciting thing about this is UCLA isn't done here. With Adem Bono leaving to the NBA, we're also in the market for another post player. TJ Kent, you guys mentioned Pharrell Payne. His name's popped up a little bit. I think the one guy that everybody on earth seems to be going after right now is Cliff Omoyuri from Rutgers. Yep. He would be a fantastic add to this team. I mean, the shot blocking, the athleticism, some of the post moves that he would bring, plug him in there and we're cooking even more than we are right now. We're also going after Tyler Bilodeau. So I don't know if you're familiar with him from Oregon State. He was a really good offensive power forward, a 3-level scorer, can shoot it, has a mid-range game, can bang down low a little bit. It sounds like it's between UCLA and UW. He's from Washington, so there's some thoughts that his parents want him to go to UW a little closer to home, but we'll see what happens there. And then another guy that allegedly is already kind of silently committed to UCLA that hasn't popped up a lot is Dominic Harris. So he's a true 3-and-D guard out of LMU. So local guy to the LA area already, played at Gonzaga for a couple of years before that. But he was like a top 5 3-point shooter last season. He shoots like nearly 45% from 3. And UCLA needed 3-point shooting. Like we were one of the worst teams in the country at 3-point shooting last year. So adding him to the fold will be really important. Again, it's not official yet, but everyone talks about it like it is at this point. So excited to hopefully get that ink dry on the Grant H soon. But yeah, it's a super exciting time to be a UCLA fan. I think we're upgrading the roster rapidly. I think the scary part is what we saw last season and what we've seen a little bit with Mick Cronin teams is rebuilds with his system can take some time,
right?
Regardless of the talent that we add. And so while I'm excited, I'm also kind of expecting some bumps along the road, especially early in the season. I don't think it's going to be UCLA is going to be blowing teams out right off the bat, but I think we're going to see some growth over the season. I think by the time we roll around to March, we'll have a pretty formidable team here.
Yeah, I tell you, just the thought of Cliff Amorier and Mick Cronin getting up together. I mean, if Big Ten fans thought it was scary seeing Steve Peichel with Cliff Amorier, Mick Cronin is, he has done some amazing thing with his defenses. I'm not trying to take away from Steve Peichel. As most people know, I am kind of like a closet Rutgers fan as well. So you guys will figure that out about me pretty quick. But yeah, I mean, I guess, Zod, my question is, of those three bigs that you mentioned, the Oregon State guy, Cliff Amorier, and Farrell Payne, I mean, which one of those three do you feel like you want, maybe not the best fit, but you just feel like you want the most out of those three?
I think it's Cliff Amorier by far. I think he unlocks a lot of what Mick Cronin wants to do. And that's what I'm afraid of is I don't think I don't think he will, but I don't want Mick Cronin to lose his identity here, trying to rebuild and win after a bad season. I think, and I think he's very self-aware about that. I don't think he's going to do this, but I don't want to try to go recruit a big who's gonna just be pure offense or something like that. He needs to look in the mirror and say, look, I succeed as a coach with defensive players, guys who bring that type of play, and Cliff Amorier fills that need for us, fits within that system, and that's the guy I think if we can land would be an awesome fit and would really unlock this next season from being having a good team to probably potentially having a great team, maybe depending on how these pieces kind of fit and gel together. The talent will be there. It just remains to be seen if Mick can fit all those puzzle pieces together effectively.
Yep, that's the goal. So Philip brings up a good point here. Zod, you probably know best other than us, but can Oregon be forced to change their home court? What's it like watching basketball on such a terrible surface that makes your eyes hurt? And I will probably have to listen to those games on the radio because I cannot watch on such a terrible court.
I don't know. I hate it as well. I think someone needs to call Phil Knight and get him to make some phone calls over there. But yeah, it's terrible. It is seizure inducing. I leave those games with a migraine watching them on TV. I've actually never been to that arena. So I'd like to go someday just to experience it in person. Maybe it's not as bad in person, but I doubt it. It's probably somehow worse. I don't know. But yeah, it's truly an affront to human eyes. I don't understand it. Sorry, Oregon fans.
That's fine. Oregon fans hate me anyway. If it was just only the bottom, it would be okay if it was trees, only coming up from one bottom, but it's all around it. It's you're looking up from the tree. I don't know. If Oregon fans like it, I guess good for you guys. I hate it. I'm going to be complaining about it all. How people are complaining about the refs against Purdue. I'm going to be complaining about Oregon's court whenever I see them playing at home.
Here's what I'll say. I there's a certain point where you hate it immensely and you will continue hating it, but then you kind of just accept it and kind of forget that it's there. I think you'll find you'll probably dislike Dana Altman more than the court at some point. but that's neither here nor there.
I can't wait to just hate the Oregon basketball program for everything that it is. So that sounds fantastic. TJ, after hearing Zod talk all about UCLA, their transfer portal class going into next year, what you know about them, what are some of your expectations for UCLA coming into the Big Ten next year, and then maybe just like if you want to talk overall, like are they going to be a top half of the team or a top half of the league team? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so it's always weird for me now as I'm trying to think like what position a team might finish in. I have to keep reminding myself how large the league now is. So when you say top half, it's like, man, they
Top
still
10.
might finish, 10th. It's weird to think that way. But for next season, I think if UCLA can add a competent center that can give them quality minutes, I think that is certainly top half. I think an NCAA tournament bid is, the expectation of the minimum for UCLA if they add that. If they add a real difference maker at center, which I think is the hole right now for their roster, add a difference maker, and I think that's a top 4, top 5 Big Ten team competing with. It's hard to project right now because the rosters are still going to be going through some permutations that are going to shake things up, and we do not know what to expect from some of these teams. But add a competent center, and I think you've got a top 5 Big Ten team. Schedule's going to play into that as well. Who knows how that's going to look. Program-wise, if UCLA is serious about committing on the NIL side, which it does appear that they are now, you've noticed that from their recruiting wins. They don't get those guys without being serious about it. So if that's a long-term commitment for as long as we have this NIL format, I think that UCLA is one of the top 5 programs in the Big Ten. I don't think there's any way really to dispute that. And I say that as an IU fan that, would love to consider Indiana a blue blood. The results haven't been there, so I think even an Indiana fan would have to admit that if UCLA is serious about competing on the NIL front, that they would go right into that conversation for one of the top programs in the league.
I'll say 2 quick things about that, both of your points. So from the center perspective, I am interested to see how Adai Mara actually develops this year. So Adai Mara came over from Spain last season as a freshman, true 7'2" guy, very skilled. But his biggest issue was, one, he just didn't adjust to American basketball and he got pushed around. So he was a little weak. 2, he just didn't understand defense the way Mick Cronin wanted it. So, having a full season now under his belt here, having an off season to get stronger, and learn the system even more. I'm curious to see how he makes the jump, because if he can put it together, he can be a true force. I don't think he'll be that next season. I think he will be good enough to be serviceable. But I think, 2 years down the road, he could be one of the best big men in the country if he puts it together. He has that kind of talent. On the NIL front, it is interesting because UCLA has a very wealthy, very massive alumni base, and it shouldn't be tough to raise money for this. And when we do put the effort in, it's clear you can do it very quickly, right? We did it in the span of a couple of months here, and enough, gathered the dollars and cash here to put this recruiting class together. And we're, like I said, we're not done yet. We're also going after a couple of freshmen that have decommitted since some of the coaching changes as well. So I think it's absolutely sustainable as long as the AD does not hinder Mick Cronin. Because Mick Cronin, from the very beginning, has been, by all accounts, engaged on this front and has been trying. But like I said earlier, UCLA as an institution has been very conservative on this matter, and which I think hindered the NIL fundraising. It sounds like we're buying in a lot more now. So I think that it should be sustainable. we'll see. One quick thing, I see in the comments somebody saying, does the Big Ten have to take Bill Walton? I think so, because I love Bill Walton. So I'm sorry if people hate him, but I think he's a national treasure. And I enjoy the absurd. Yeah. That's controversial, but yeah.
No, I love the random. I mean, definitely not somebody I would want to be like doing a Final Four game, but just like a random game on a Tuesday night where I'm just kind of watching basketball for fun. It's not really a huge game. Like, Bill Walton's in there talking about, I think he did a Zed Key game one time for Ohio State, and he talked about like his pet. What did he have, a pet ferret or something like that? And Bill Walton just went on and on and on about this ferret for like 10 straight minutes, and it was like, guys, there was a game going on.
I'm convinced it's an act. So I've had the privilege of meeting him a couple times, and he's a very nice, personable person otherwise, but you turn the camera on to him, and then he's just like, all right, he's locked into his own weird, absurd world.
That's awesome.
I love it.
That's awesome. Kent, your thoughts? UCLA coming in the Big Ten.
First of all, if we don't get Bill, I'm not sure why we're even bringing these teams in the first place. We have to have him. That's a must. That's part of the deal, I think. Quick question for Zed. Mac and because I'm learning about UCLA, Mac and Andrews, are those two guys both back?
Yeah. So
okay.
Andrews is going to be starting. Mac, it was a freshman, got thrown into the deep end a little bit. I really like him. He has that dog mentality. Like, he's just a guy that's going to go hard no matter what.
Yeah.
But I think he might have to take a little bit more of a bench role next season.
Yeah. Well, it's just interesting because you talk about those two guys, and then you add Kobe, who I really like, and obviously we all know about Sky Clark, and then even Daly, all three of the guys that you just mentioned. You have 4, almost 5 guys that averaged double digits last year. That's a pretty potent offense to get started. And then if you add another big, like TJ was saying, like a center, it's going to be a real, real good team to compete next year, and should be very exciting. Here's my fun fact of the night, though. Mick Cronin has not finished below 5th place in a conference since 2013 when he was at Cincinnati, and it was their last year in the Big East. So I like trends. He hasn't done it in over 10 years. I'm going to say that UCLA, here's my quick thoughts and my prediction. UCLA will be a top 5 team in the conference next year, and my prediction is they will finish in 4th place. That's my bold prediction for tonight.
I love
it. Does that stat count last year?
Yeah, they were 5th place last year.
Were they?
Yeah,
really?
Came in 5th. Yeah.
Okay.
That's just how bad.
I knew you had a run there. I knew you had a run there where you played a lot better towards the back third of the year. So, yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all. There's a lot of, I think it's a very deep team that does not have too many discernible weaknesses as long as you get the development on the perimeter in terms of shooting. I think you're kind of in the same boat as Indiana, where you have a lot of things to like, but there's a critical piece that has to develop, and that's the perimeter shooting. And without that, the margin for error is so small in games against teams that can actually score consistently that it makes you a bit shy about feeling really good about things.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. I think it's still a work in progress for sure.
Yeah.
But I think it's trending the right direction. So we'll see, and I think we'll get to the 2025 bracketology piece in a little bit. But I have a bone to pick with that.
I figured you would. Before we do that, let's talk about a father-son duo. Patrick McCaffrey, he signs with Butler, is going on over there about, 2 or 3 weeks ago when he went into the transfer portal. Everybody was thinking, oh my gosh, what's going on? Is Fred McCaffrey leaving? Well, after Patrick McCaffrey commits with Butler, whatever you want to call it, he's come out and he said, No, this has nothing to do with my dad retiring. This has nothing to do with anything like that going on. Just sometimes people need a change of scenario, a different place to go. And he said that his father, he talked to him about it, and he knows what's going on, and he supports him and what he's doing. So this isn't, according to Patrick, this isn't a situation where Fran is retiring or anything like that. Kent, do you buy it, or are you kind of still on the Fran might retire watch? Let's see what happens here. What are your thoughts, Kent?
I'm buying it. I think he's going to be back next year, at least for one more year. I don't know why. I have no inside information. I have no other facts to back this up other than, and this isn't even a fact to back it up. The only reason I think his son is transferring is for love. And I think we all know that, right? He's following Caitlin out to Indiana, and that's why he wants to be out there. He wants to be closer to her. And, not even a father could get between love and basketball, if you will.
Though.
What's that?
It's not Patrick. It's Connor that's dating Caitlin.
Oh, I thought that was the same guy.
No. Connor graduated, 2 or 3 years ago or something?
Oh, well, then I'm an idiot then. I wrote all this stuff for no reason. That's how closely I follow the McCaffrey sons. That's not the one that's dating? Why is he going out there then?
His brother is going to live in Indianapolis, apparently, with Caitlin. I guess
they're
living downtown. So, stay close to
close to the brother and his future sister-in-law.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. So my point still stands. My point still stands then.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I meant. Yeah. I thought it was the same guy. I'm sorry. That's on me. No, but the article that you sent me that I read right before we got on, it said that he had a quote that said there's no plan for him to go anywhere else, which I take as there's no plan for him to retire. And I'm going to take him for his word that he would know if his dad was going to retire. Now, I've been lied to before in articles, so he could be totally lying, and his dad's going to retire next week, and I'll look like an idiot. But I still think that he's got a little bit more want to stay around for 1 or 2 more years, and then maybe he's done. But it's going to be tough. Like, if I was him, I would want to see my son playing college basketball. And obviously, if he's coaching a different team and his son's out at Butler playing, he's not going to be able to watch him, live and in person. So I wouldn't be surprised if he does, but I think that he's staying at least for another year, at least.
I love the theory here from Philip. Connor McCaffrey, he's taking a job with the Pacers now. Okay, I didn't know that.
Okay, see, this is the information I need right here. Okay.
Patrick at Butler, Indiana rumors of the youngest McCaffrey being Jack. He was the other one I was going to mention, going to Notre Dame.
Right.
All right. TJ, it's either you or the Purdue guys. Looks like you're going to be getting Fran McCaffrey as an assistant coach or something like that. Do you accept?
Mike Woodson hates Fran McCaffrey, so that part's not going to work. I can say that part of this, Patrick McCaffrey would like to get into coaching whenever his playing is done, and I think if that is a future plan for him, I think it is a good idea to get some other exposure to other coaches, how they do things. Thad Matta, good example to go learn from. I think that's a part of it. I also, I imagine that it is difficult to play. I would not know. My dad was not a Division I coach, and I was certainly not a Division I player. But I imagine it's difficult to play for your father, constantly be tied to that every time you do anything. It's with the addendum of coach's son, Patrick McCaffrey,
Right.
A chance to kind of do his own thing for a year, but not totally being on his own, where, he's got his brother there, still has a support system in place. I think that those are two things that make this more than just about Fran retiring. I think that he's 64. I mean, it's likely that he's near the end of his coaching career. Iowa has a young roster returning, and they haven't really added much in the portal that would make you confident next season is going to be better than this one. So I'm not another couple seasons like you had last year, and I don't think Fran's going to have much of a say in the matter. Yeah, I'm not suggesting he's on the hot seat, but I think he's inching towards like the warm seat. And they don't have a roster right now that looks all that competitive to me.
Did Indiana State hire anybody yet? Because there's a spot.
There we
That's
go.
true.
There you go, Fran.
Fran
You
to
heard it here
ISU.
first from the guy that can't keep your son's names correct. There's a job
ISU.
opening at Indiana State. You should take it.
There we
Take
go.
my
ISU
advice.
is like 20 minutes down the road from me, so I would love to go
How-
see Fran stare at some other referees.
How long has Patrick been there? Hasn't it been like 4 or 5 years?
I think this is his 6th year or it's his 5th year. It's one of those two.
Okay. I feel like
So
this
it's been
is
at
all
least
much
4
ado
years
about
that he's there.
nothing.
Yeah.
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 Like it
Indiana
it feels
State
like
did hire somebody, by the way, so
Yeah.
that's off the board for him as well. Matthew
Oh,
Graves,
they did?
connection to Butler, former Butler player Matthew Graves, and assistant
okay.
coach at Indiana State, so they moved him up in the role. But that's a tough job. It's a hard job. Not many resources there in Terre Haute. Sorry to cut you off there, but
No, all good. I was just saying, like, based on what I've seen about this whole story, it feels like this blew up for really no good reason, minus he was the coach's son.
Right.
Like, he's been there 4 or 5 years. He's kind of sick of it. He's just like, I need a new place to stay, and my brother's close by, and I'm out. Like, I don't think it's anything more complicated than that. And I think that the AD also came out and said, like, there's no plan for McCaffrey to leave or get fired or anything. So I
Never
again,
trust those dirty ADs, though. You know, they're
that is
always
true.
lying.
I could be completely wrong.
they do not like coaching changes at Iowa.
That's what I was
Yeah.
gonna say. When Patrick McCaffrey first entered the portal, I was one of the first people to tweet out like, "Oh, you know, is he moving on? Is Fran McCaffrey?" And I had a surprising number of Iowa fans that was like, "Yes, please, new blood, coaching one of our teams, please."
Yeah.
You know, Fran's been there forever, and
All right, I got it.
Fran's
Jr.
been there
I
forever.
found it. I found it right here.
What you got?
This is breaking news. Okay.
Okay.
West Lane Middle School it's right down the street from Butler is looking for a basketball coach.
Okay.
So actually, I don't know if that's true. I just found the closest middle school. But yeah, Fran could go there, and he'll be right by his son again.
That would be the best middle school offense in the state of Indiana.
Yes, I agree. So there's opportunities out there in Indiana still for Fran if he needs it.
There we go. We'll just
Is
see
what
if
I'm
Mrs.
saying.
McCaffrey wants to go out there.
Might
We
be a
know
pay
from
cut.
Scott Drew and Dan Hurley that you have to ask the missus before you take a new job. So,
That's right.
all right, let's get to the final topic here. Zod, we'll let you start with this one since you were talking about you have a little bit of issues here, which I thought you might. So I thought it would be a good topic to bring up. But Joe Lunardi has done some 2025 NCAA tournament bracketology. Don't ask me how he knows anything of this because the transfer portal isn't even done yet. But you know, here he is trying it out. And so he has listed 9 Big Ten teams in the tournament. So I'll go ahead and list them really fast. Number 3 seed Purdue. Number 5 seed Michigan State. Wowzer, do they have a big man yet? I don't think so. That's not going to happen until they get a big man. Anyway, I'm a known Michigan State hater, so if you guys don't know that. But number 5, Rutgers. Do they have anybody but their freshmen? I don't think so, but we'll move on from there. Number 6, Ohio State. Number 6, Illinois. Number 7, Nebraska. Number 7, Wisconsin. Number 8, Indiana. Number 8, Maryland. I could list off numerous things that's wrong with this. Not only that, but also the next 4 out teams that he has. He has Minnesota on the next 4 out. He does not have any of these Pac-12 teams coming in. Oregon, UCLA, USC, and Washington. I can kind of get Washington and Oregon, you know, a little bit of questions there with Altman and Sprinkle. Of course, Altman did get they were almost in, right? They weren't in the tournament this year.
They made it.
Playing game. Oh, they did make it?
Yeah.
They did make it, yeah.
Okay. What were they, like an 11 seed or something like that? They were barely in, weren't they? Something like that. But anyway,
They crawled in for
so
sure.
they won the
Yeah.
tournament.
Yeah.
So they would have
Okay.
been
that's
10 or
right, I
11,
forgot they
something
won
like
the tournament.
that. Yeah.
So none of them even close is what Joe Lunardi is predicting here. Zod, I think I could do it for you, but you'll go ahead. Let Joe Lunardi know what he's got wrong here.
I've been on the record before stating I've not been a huge fan of Joe Lunardi's bracketology in the past as well. So I will go on the record again and state that again. But in all seriousness, I do expect UCLA to be a tournament team next season, especially with the ads that we already have. Plus, if we do get a true post player, like I could see us going anywhere from like a 4 to an 8 seed. I'm not saying we're gonna be making a national championship run or anything, but I do expect Cronin to get this team into good enough shape to be a tournament team. Not doing so would probably result in his departure, and I think he knows that. And I think he's very highly motivated to make sure that doesn't happen. I also think Oregon, despite the question marks, is a team that generally, like Dana Altman, cobbles together rosters every year. Has been hitting the transfer portal hard for a while, and somehow gets into the tournament. So I would not be surprised if Oregon manages to do that again. They always have talent. Just a question of does the talent gel in time? And generally, he gets it done. So I do think UCLA UCLA for sure, I would expect to be in the tournament next season. Oregon, there's a good chance of that happening. UW is interesting, with Sprinkle coming in. I think there's a lot of question marks there. I think he's pulling over some guys from Utah State that I think will be effective. I think Tyler Bilodeau, I mentioned earlier, UCLA is going after him. If he can land him, that's a big talent add right there as well. We'll see what they look like. USC, I'm not trying to be a hater or anything here just because they're our rival, but I don't see it. I don't even know who they have on the team anymore. They have like 2 players on the roster.
Did they get a couple Arkansas guys?
I think they've pulled a couple of guys. Yeah, it's going to be a work in progress. I think, Eric Musselman has his work cut out for him next season. I think he's a good coach. I think he'll be able to turn them around in a couple of years, but next season for sure, I don't see it. But,
yeah, I think.
So yeah,
I think
that's my quick.
Personally, is like a top 3, top 5 coach in the Big Ten right now. That could change if he doesn't do so well, but but I'm there with you, Zod. Unless I see some bigger additions, Musselman's going to have his work cut out for him this year. Oops, meant to go to Philip here.
Yeah,
we'll get to that in a minute. Or go ahead, Zod.
I was just going to say, SC's interesting. Just like basketball at that school, the institutional support for it has been lacking for a very long time. Now, getting Musselman there, I think, is a big win for them. He's probably been their best X's and O coach for maybe ever, right? I think Andy Enfield was a hell of a recruiter. He got a lot of talent there, but he just could never actually get a team to play well. I think Musselman will recruit pretty well there and get the team in good shape. We'll just see how they compete on the NIL front. We'll see if he burns those bridges there. I feel like Eric Musselman has a reputation for running his course very quickly with programs. So we'll see how that happens, if that happens at all there. But yeah, I don't see them as a tournament team next season.
Work cut out for him, like you said.
For sure.
TJ, for sure. Philip is saying what I was going to bring up here in a minute, but since he brought it up, I'll just go ahead and say it. With 18 teams, only 9 seems low coming out of the Big Ten, especially with some of these additions that are coming through the transfer portal. I tend to agree. I would think it'd be somewhere closer to like 10 or 11 teams, like we said, UCLA being added in there, possibly maybe an Oregon team, maybe Minnesota team, something like that. I don't think I'm probably missing somebody off the top of my head, but those kind of teams being added in there, I could definitely see happening, getting the Big Ten to 9 or to 10 or 11 teams. TJ, what are your thoughts on Joe Lunardi's Big Ten selections, or just his selections in general with the bracketology?
Right, yeah. UCLA certainly seems like a notable omission to me. Of the ones that he included in the field, the 2 that I would be quite surprised if they reach the level that they're currently projected would be Rutgers, given I know they have a talented freshman class coming in. That's only a couple of players, and they've lost quite a bit of veteran leadership and veteran talent. That even with those guys, that team was a disaster this past season. Um, I don't really see currently a roster that would be capable of reaching the tournament. Certainly not at the seed that Joe Lunardi had him at. The second one that I think is a bit generous right now is Nebraska. Keisei Tominaga was relied on for so much. He's gone. Kyle Wilcher, reliable piece for them as well. And Alec, reliable energy guy for them. Those guys are gone. They have added some players through the portal. I do not think they've added anything close to replacing the threat that Tominaga was. He, not only his scoring, but just having him out there required so much attention from the defense that it helped the other players really be able to have open looks with, lower level defenders put on them. Everybody has to step up a level without that kind of anchor on your offense. So I think that Nebraska could reach that. They're going to require a lot of development from the returning players, and I think they're going to have to hit a couple of home runs in the portal. Somebody like a Frankie Fiddler, amazing name, from Omaha there. He's the type of offensive force, at least from an efficiency standpoint, at a lower level, that if he can translate that up, and if he goes to Nebraska, that would be something that would change my mind. But right now, I don't see it with Nebraska, and I don't see it with Rutgers. But I do think that Big Ten ends up with something like 10 to 11 teams ultimately. Just it's going to be important for the league to have a good non-conference, because obviously your metrics kind of set themselves, and the schedule is going to be such that a team might not have quite as many good opportunities to get those quad one wins as you would think they would, because maybe you've got a schedule draw that sees you only playing, the top of the league one time, and you're playing the bottom of the league, those quad 2, quad 3 games multiple times. You might be able to rack up wins that are empty. They don't mean much for your resume. So it's going to be important for the league to have a good non-conference, which they have struggled to do at times. But it's so weird to talk about 9 teams as being low. We're just going to have to reset kind of our mental expectations for how many teams in the tournament is a good number for a league. The bigger these leagues get, those numbers change.
Yeah, and Philip brings up a good point here. Nebraska did add the goggles, Gavin Griffith. Unfortunately, he will not be the same player that Keisei Tominaga was.
I think he shot.
Are you sure about that? Are you sure about that?
28% last year.
He makes some major improvements, but
averaged 6 points a game.
He just didn't get the chances, TJ. That's why.
That's right, because Rutgers had so many good offensive weapons. He was
you give him
limited.
the ball, you just let him cook.
Yeah.
Let him cook.
Yeah.
Kent, man, you tell me, and then you can get into your bracketology talk here. Do we really see a world where new coach Jake Diebler, and I'm not hating on Jake Diebler. I love me some Jake Diebler. Okay, I want to make that very clear. I love me some Jake Diebler. But are we really looking at a situation here where brand new coach Jake Diebler gets Ohio State to a 6th seed, and Dusty May, who is reincarnating Florida Atlantic into Michigan as we speak, misses the tournament, doesn't even get a bubble watch scenario? I mean, I know this Michigan team was bad, but when you bring the talent over, Vlad Golden and John Al Davis, like people think, obviously it hasn't happened yet, but like people think is going to happen. Can you really say that Ohio State's more likely to be in the tournament over Michigan? Kent, your thoughts?
I can't say that, and neither can Joe Lunardi at this point. We're a week and a half away. Like the tournament just ended. Like there's multiple things. Like so many things are going to happen from now until the beginning of next year. Like he for sure cannot predict. Like this is going to look so dumb next year. All of these picks, I think, are going to look dumb. Like it's way too early to decide any of this. He needs to leave it for the idiots on Twitter like myself to do stuff like this. That's what I should be doing this, not Joe Lunardi. This
He's
is
taking your
this is
content,
crazy.
man.
This is
You're
crazy.
giving Lunardi too much credit. I think he is an elevated idiot on Twitter that just has an
Hey.
ESPN platform.
That's where I'm trying to get to. I want to be
Yeah,
like
right.
him,
That's
man.
where we're all-
An elevated idiot. I would love to be known as that. An elevated idiot. That's perfect. No, but that's a good point, JR. I think that Michigan could be in the conversation for a tournament, especially there's just so many ifs right now. Like they got the FAU guy coming to visit like this weekend. So like if they pick him up and they get it big and they can keep, I don't know who they're going to keep. Hopefully like nobody because their team was terrible this year.
Jace Howard's coming back.
Jace Howard, yeah. Again, just did not get the opportunities. He could be
fight
the
with
next
another
Tominaga,
traitor.
type guy. But here's what I'm going to do just to make it quick, even though I've already been long-winded. I'm going to take 3 teams out that he had in, and I'm going to add 3 just to make it simple and just say that it's going to be 9 next year. I'm taking Michigan State out right now, just like you mentioned, JR. With the roster that they have right now, they were – like if they lose the Northwestern game this year, which that was a very injured Northwestern team that they beat at home by 4, that's what launched them into the tournament this year. A 4-point win against a really bad Northwestern team. They haven't added anybody to that. So they barely made it this year. I don't see how you can say they're going to make a 5 next year with no ads so far. So I'm taking them out off the top. And then I'm taking out team that TJ just mentioned, Nebraska. I don't think that they can make it next year, just plain and simple. And then I'm also taking out Wisconsin. I don't think that they'll make it this year, and mainly because I'm so upset with them for the terrible performance in my March Madness bracket. I'm taking them out. I hope I don't have to make that decision next year. So Wisconsin, you're out as well. And here's the 3 teams I'm going to add. UCLA, we've already talked about enough, so UCLA, you're in. And then 2 teams that are doing it a different way than UCLA and a different way than most of college basketball. They're actually keeping guys around for another year. It's going to be Minnesota making the tournament next year. And it's also going to be Northwestern is going to make the tournament. The best coach in the Big Ten, Chris Collins, is not missing the tournament next year. So those are the 3 that I'm going to add.
I love it. I love it. I would love to see Elijah Hawkins in the tournament as well. I need his like little skippy feet going all around, being quicker than everybody else. And
I need it.
throwing
Dude, they're
that
bringing
ball
back
all
like
around.
almost everybody. Minnesota's going to look good next year.
I know. We were talking earlier. We had Ali Babala on Mike and talking about like, oh, is it possible you could lose Garcia? Is it possible you could lose Christie? And all these guys are coming back. Like,
They're back.
yes, you lost Farrell Payne, but like.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you keep Cam Christie, future NBA player, the guy that Michigan State fans hate because he is exactly who the other Christie brother was supposed to be for them, but he never turned out to be. And Dawson Garcia, who apparently wasn't playing at the end of the year because he was too busy talking to other teams, but turns out he was playing because he wants to stick around Minnesota. Like, I mean, now the NIL check may have helped with that. Who knows? But at the end of the day, like, I mean, this is huge for Minnesota. I'm with you. Ken. I think Minnesota
And Parker
could be in
Fox, by the way. He's back
there.
too.
Parker Fox. Yes.
Yeah, he's back.
He's huge.
Don't forget.
So,
Don't forget about Parker.
all right, guys. Any final thoughts on the bracketology and whatnot before we get out of here?
I think we summed it up pretty well. It's not currently meaningful.
Yeah. Thank you, Joe
Yes.
Lunardi, for your content. Please never take the elevated idiot seriously again. We'll see. Unless it's Kent.
I never do. I never do.
I would love to have the elevated idiot on this podcast with me someday. So we'll try to make that
I might have burned that bridge by saying that. Sorry about that.
That's okay. No, I'm saying if Kent makes it to that status. We'll
Yes,
have-
yes. If I get
Yeah.
there, if I get
Yeah.
known as the elevated idiot, then yeah, I'll be here still.
I love it. I love it. TJ, why don't you tell people where they can find you at, man?
Yeah, I don't really do social media, so you can find me on HoosierHuddle.com. I've got spring game coming up tomorrow night for Kurt Signetti, new head coach for Indiana. So HoosierHuddle.com, Twitter or X, whatever we're calling it, at Hoosier Huddle. So yeah, we certainly appreciate it. We churn out free IU content for football. So keyword there, free.
Are you guys doing a live stream or anything like that, or
We will have a post-game show. We also have a pre-game podcast up right now, as well as a lot of different content matchups to watch, articles, key numbers, all that different stuff. And we're going to have a post-game show as well with Andy Graham, who longtime writer for the Bloomington Herald. Great guy. So Sammy Jacobs, myself, and Andy Graham from the Bloomington Herald, ex-Bloomington Herald. He retired a few years back, but Bloomington legend Andy Graham will be joining us as well. Lots of excitement for Indiana football right now. We are hoping to reach the epic status of a bowl game.
Very good. Hey, I'm excited to watch some Curtis Rourke tomorrow. I like Curtis
There you
Rourke
go.
a lot. So, Zad, where can people find you at, man?
Yeah, so we're on Twitter at Bruins Source. You can find our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all those platforms. We don't currently have a site up. We're primarily on those social media and some of the other podcast platforms. But yeah, if you're looking to learn about UCLA, it's myself on the show, and then my buddy Kevin, and then our third guy Isaiah pops in from time to time. We all went to UCLA together, 10, 15 years ago. Yeah, that's our primary focus. We kind of talk about mostly basketball, football, women's basketball, some Olympic sports, baseball when we have the time. So we try to cover a lot of bases. But yeah, it's always fun. And yeah, thanks for having me today.
I see what you did there, the bases. You just mentioned baseball and the bases.
That was
find you on thecollegehuddle.com.
And yes, you can always find us on thecollegehuddle.com.
There you go.
It still feels I'm still getting used to saying that.
There you go. Yeah, it's new. It's fun to talk about. So, Kent, you're all over Twitter, man. Anywhere else you want to point people to?
Nope, just Twitter. I'm doing just thought of this today. It's actually been a nice little break the last week and a half. I haven't been doing a lot of stuff since basketball season got over, but I just came up with the idea this morning that I'm going to put out weird pictures of all the Big Ten football coaches and ask people for their predictions. And I started with James Franklin with a big forehead today, and be on the lookout for Fat PJ Fleck tomorrow with the Minnesota predictions. So I'll be doing that every morning for the next 18. That's so stupid. I don't know where I come up with this stuff. I'll be doing that for the next 18 days, though, with each college football.
You got your
Sorry,
next
it's so dumb. But there's really nothing else to do right now, right? It's been kind of nice.
I love it. PJ Fleck, he can't wear those tight pants though if he's gonna be fat PJ Fleck.
It's all gonna be upper body stuff. So it's
okay.
like shoulders and up. I should start doing full body because I could do that, but it's easier to do it from my phone just with the faces. So
there we go. I love
Yeah.
it. I love it. And you can find Philip in the comments section. He seems to be alone tonight, but
yeah, man,
check it out. 7 is there as well. So appreciate
big Philly style.
Philip, and check it out. 7 being here, commenting as well, and appreciate everybody else who was watching. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Thank you guys for coming on, talking some Big Ten ball. Have a good one.